If you want to have an abundant garden in the new year, full of fertility and growth, then you need to get your shit together. I'm Justin Hitt from Prosperity Homestead. This is a pile of, well, what's left of a pile of manure. It's rabbit manure. There's also discarded buckets of planting materials, other things, basically compost. But what we're doing here is we're taking this beautiful resource here and we're spreading it on the fields. I've got almost the whole field done over that corner, and we've got additional fields here and some flower areas over there. And what do I mean by getting your shit together? What do I mean about this metaphor? Well, first off, I know you've been thinking about growing a garden, expanding your small farm, homestead, or estate, and you just don't know where to get started. Fuel prices are up. Fertilizer prices are up. Everything seems to be against you, yet you know the value of growing your own food to free you from harmful chemicals and the other additives that are being added to our food. Even organic food today, the criteria for organic food is not that stringent. So what we've done here is, because we have rabbit manure, is we've separated it, turned it a few times, let it break down a little bit, and then we're spreading it on the garden beds as additive nutrients in addition to cover crops and other management techniques. Now, why is this so important? First off, rabbits will continue to poop as long as they're eating. And as long as you can buy rabbit food, which is a value-added product, of course you can feed them with stuff on your farm, but let's say you're buying rabbit food, why not get the most out of that food by getting it in meat, converting the alfalfa, the grains, into meat, and then their manures into vegetables, literally growing a whole meal. And what's important about this is that all types of livestock manure, and I say livestock manure specifically because dog and cat manure doesn't make very good fertilizer. It requires a lot more processing. Now, human manure, human waste can actually be processed. It takes a little more time. But your rabbits, your goats, your cows, anything that primarily eats vegetation, so basically the manures of vegetarians, breaks down very easily and has enough fiber in it and enough balanced nutrients in order to feed the fields. Now, if you are grazing, like I said, these are small fields here. We wouldn't graze animals on these small fields. But if you're grazing animals on a larger field, you can in effect fertilize that field by moving the animals over the field over time. In this case, the rabbit cages are dug out. The manure under the cages are dug out, mounded up, brought out here to the garden area and used to top dress the fields. Now, we're not trying to bury the fields. We're just top dressing the fields. But again, get your shit together. There are organic waste resources on your property that can go through composting, vermicomposting or vermiculture, or otherwise mounded and used as fertilizer. Think about your organic waste from your home, your vegetable scraps, your food waste, your paper that doesn't contain any plastics in it. All of that can be shredded, can be put in a compost pile. If you've got a worm bin, you can start a worm bin, and the worms will actually eat those materials and value add to it. And essentially, all the stuff that is normally waste for other people can be quite valuable resources for your small farm, homestead, or estate. So maybe you don't have cow manure. Well, one time I helped a couple farmers get manure by contacting an equestrian center, and we sent a dump truck over there to remove 145 cubic yards of horse manure that a couple of farmers that were part of this co-op actually spread on their fields. And so the nutrients that the equestrian center wants to get rid of became fertilizer for the farmers, saved them thousands of dollars, and it is a reuse of materials. There's all kinds of manures out there that you can get. Now, what kinds of risks are we looking at? Well, first off, the equestrian center manures, the cows would have, or the horses would have shots, so antibiotics and things like that. So that manure needs to age a little bit longer. In the case of this rabbit manure, it's ready to go on right after it's dug out from under the rabbits. We turn it a couple times to get the ammonia out of it, to get a little bit of the the material broken down a little bit so that there's not obvious pellets in the field, because we actually like to see if there's a rabbit or deer all the way out in our property anyway. The underlying thing is that the manures can go straight into a worm bin, straight into a composting system, and then straight onto the garden beds. I don't need to do anything special. The last kind of manure is a green manure, which is actually the cover crops that you're using. And you'll notice how these fields, the access route has different grass on it than the actual growing areas, because we've used a cover crop that includes hairy vetch, peas, grass, daikon radish, everything that we need to feed that soil. So again, get your shit together. Find out where there's coffee grounds. Find out where there's chipped up trees, wood chips. Find out where there's these materials and appropriately implement them in your small farm, homestead, or estate. Now, you might be saying, well, Justin, you said no outside resources are necessary. These are resources that would normally be waste. You don't have to pay for them in most cases. Like, I didn't pay the equestrian center to remove, I think it was 288 cubic yards total. We split it between 2 farms. I didn't have to pay the equestrian center to remove that. I had to pay for the dump truck and the excavator, but I didn't have to pay the equestrian center because I freed up what was probably 24 foot by 128 foot where they've been storing manure over the last couple of years. They were able to reduce the amount of size of where their manure is stored, and ultimately gives them more riding room and more opportunity to do other things. That is a resource that once you build that relationship, you can use and benefit from forever. It helps them, it helps you. So those are the kind of outside resources that would come in. They don't cost you much. They're helping your local community, building those local bonds. I collected 2,500 pounds of coffee grounds from a local coffee shop at one time, and basically turned that into compost. Again, we want to fertilize this soil, not with chemicals, not with industrial waste, which that's what a lot of fertilizer is. We want to fertilize it with organic waste that comes from a healthy stream that we know what inputs came in. So yes, you still have to buy your feed for your animals. You still have to grow straw for your cows, but those manures, just simply scrape them, mound them, and move them to the garden, and you could have an abundance of nutrients now and forever. It really is just a matter of doing an energy audit. We do this with clients a lot of times. We're gonna, whether you have a large farm or a small homestead, we help with these energy audits to kind of find you materials. Rice husks, soybean shells. There's a lot of waste materials that it's organic. It's waste to the person who has it, but would be high value for your small farm. And we essentially, it takes a little bit of elbow grease, but essentially we're feeding the nutrients in the soil. We're not putting any harsh chemicals on the land, and we're ultimately building out that fertility. We also, again, we manage how water runs off. There's a lot more if you were here, by the way, that I could walk you through. And I could show you how we've designed these beds in a certain way so that the nutrients we have doesn't wash off. But again, those rabbits aren't going to stop pooping. All rabbits do is make more rabbits and poop. That's all they do. Horses, same way. If you got a horse, every time you muck out a stall, get it out on the garden bed. Now, we're going to have an idle bed out here that's going to receive manures all year long. And then some of that's going to be saved off to go between crops. We can talk specifically on how to manage this if you have any questions. I'm Justin Hitt from Prosperity Homestead. Visit me at www.prosperityhomestead.org. You'll find us on YouTube, Reddit, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, all over the place. Prosperity Homestead. Just simply in the comments, ask your questions, and I'm going to get back to work. I'm taking a little break here, and I'm going to get this manure spread out because, again, it is nutrients. It is biomass. It is organic material going in the soil. It is minerals, enzymes, all kinds of things that you need for a healthy and prosperous homestead. Quality food, insulation from the supply chain, and ultimately growth for your family and community. Thanks for watching. Again, I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. Like and subscribe. Talk to you later. Bye.